Hello, party people, and welcome to another episode of Office Hours. In today's episode, I'm going to start by going through the questions in PullGab, and then I'm going to switch over to working on first responder pull requests. So the first responder kit is on GitHub, and we piled up probably like 10 pull requests that have come in over the last month or so, and I've been kind of lazy and I haven't gotten to them. Speaking of lazy, I have not done my holiday cards either. Not terribly wild about that. I have to go do that here shortly. There's all kinds of things I haven't done that I've been just distracted. There's so many cool things happening in technology right now, and then of course I get distracted by those and do shiny things. I also probably need to play Dead by Daylight a little today as well. Jessica, good to see you. Been a while since I've seen you in here as well. So let's go see what your top voted question is over on PullGab. Top voted question comes from Mooney, who says, "Hey Brent, aside from installing and playing around with it, what's the best way to get started with Postgres for someone already familiar with SQL Server?" Of course, solving real world business problems is the best way to learn anything, like by going to your dev team or your business managers and saying, "Hey, what is it that you need Postgres for?" and then trying to build it out in order to accomplish those goals. If you can't do that, another thing that you may find helpful is watching streams of other people work with it. Honestly, that's how I learn a lot of things these days, is I go watch videos of other people doing the thing, and then I just find myself getting absorbed in the way that they do it. You pick up some pro tips and practical stuff that you might not otherwise see. Next up, Frozt asks, "I would like to inquire if you have DBA tasks in mind that can be delegated to a service center or a command center, or if these tasks should remain assigned to the DBA for job security." My answer for this is exactly the same no matter what your job is. If you're going to get promoted, the only way for you to do that is by training other people to do what you do. Your company, if they're going to promote you, it's very hard for them to hire someone who knows what you know. It's very easy for them to say, "Oh, Bo over there in the corner has already been doing some of this stuff under this person's tutelage for the last several months. Why don't we just take them and promote them into the DBA role and let them learn the rest of it along the way?" So I have always, no matter what job I have, I'm always looking for who's the person that I can push some of my work off onto to get them a better job, more money going down the road. It still happens today. There are tasks, I tell you what, like publishing my videos on TikTok. I don't do that myself. I've offloaded that to other people because I want to encourage other people to be able to do this kind of work. So it's true for anything that you do. Next up, Steven says, "Hi Brent, got a BI tool that has an aggregated set of temp tables. Both scan estimates are accurate and all the rows match, but the hash join only estimates one row. Any ideas on why the estimate could be so far off?" It's tough for me to see without the execution plan. That's why we invented pastetheplan.com. Pastetheplan.com lets you paste an execution plan's contents into there, and then you can share that link with people over at, say, dba.stackexchange.com or stackoverflow.com, and you can link to it and say, "Here's my execution plan. Can you give me some advice?" Next up, Frank asks, "What's your opinion of Azure AI search?" I have no opinion. I've never used it. No clue. Next up, Need Memory Dump says, "I have a server with 1 terabyte of RAM. Min is set to 0 and max is set to 900. The server takes all 900 as soon as I turn on the SQL server. Why? It's because you have lock pages in memory turned on, lock pages in memory, which will go ahead and pre-allocate all of that memory as soon as you have the SQL server turned on. There's nothing wrong with that. If you have a server with 1 terabyte worth of RAM, you want to use that 1 terabyte worth of RAM. So the thing that I really turn around and ask is, what's the problem that you're trying to solve that you would encourage SQL Server to use such little memory? if by like your question or name says you need a memory dump, well, what you do is either change max memory, set it to lower, or else turn off lock pages in memory. For the first time chatter there, NS Lindtner, click out the URL up on the top of the screen there, and then that's where our questions go in, and people can upvote and downvote them. Then I'll go tackle it from there. Next up, Heinrich says, what is your opinion of Azure Cosmos DB? I love the theory of it. Microsoft believed that they wanted to make one database that spoke all kinds of languages. It could pretend to be a SQL database. It could pretend to be NoSQL. It could pretend to be MongoDB. It could pretend to be a document database. I love the idea of that, but then a jack of all trades and master of none kind of comes into play here. Because you say, does it compete well with AWS Aurora for new software development? Not really, because it's expensive. Go check out the pricing of Cosmos DB and compare it to Aurora, and it's really hard since, of course, they have all kinds of weird ways of pricing this stuff, but the deeper that you get into Cosmos DB, it's a little on the expensive side. Microsoft will say that, well, you can start with 0 with Cosmos DB serverless. Yeah, that just means you don't pay until you start to use it. Look at the pricing as you start to use it, and then that kind of changes things. Jim Van Allen, good to see you there in chat. Next up, Jose says, why is it slower to do a select star into a temp table than it is to select the columns that you need and then insert them into the temp table? I'd have to see the execution plans for that because that's not true across the board. So if you look, don't show them to me. Go to pastetheplan.com, paste in your 2 execution plans, and then you can ask that question over at like stackoverflow.com or dba.stackexchange.com. It probably has something to do with your particular execution plan. Jessica continues on with the Cosmos DB versus Aurora thing by saying that Aurora is a hosted relational database, so Azure SQL DB is a much closer match. Yes, and Azure SQL DB is also more expensive. James Fogel says, I don't have a question, just a thank you. I've learned a lot from you. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for what you do and all you give to us. You're appreciated. You're welcome. I have a really good time trying to make sure that everybody else's career sucks less than mine did when I was on the way up. So it really pushes me to give all kinds of stuff back there. ChompingBits asks, what is your preferred way to run a bunch of the same query against a bunch of servers? So I have a weird job these days. I'm a production database administrator. I'm not a production database administrator anymore. A Freudian slip there. I'm not a production database administrator anymore. I tend to focus on one SQL server at a time. By focusing on one server at a time, I do a really in-depth performance tuning on that one. So I don't have a need to run stuff against a lot of servers. I wouldn't say that there's a best practice either. It's whatever tool you're comfortable with. Maybe you're comfortable with PowerShell. Maybe you're comfortable with C#, whatever it is. Perseus asks, should joins on natural keys on large tables always be avoided in favor of joins on surrogate keys? What's the saying? Never say always. Something like that. It's like never say always. I forget what it is. There aren't a lot of hard, fast rules in databases, and I don't think that this question is a hard, fast rule either. If you need to join on natural keys, join on them. It's hard for me to dictate to users how they should write their queries. Whatever works best for your data model, and if you think that one way works much better in terms of performance, show that to the users. Take one of their queries and rewrite it in the way that you want and see how it performs better or worse in terms of logical reads, in terms of CPU and things like that. DK Kimbo says, I like to join on supernatural keys. Wilson says, what is your opinion of the new Azure ARC SQL performance dashboards? Okay, I'm going to say something else that is going to get me into trouble here. Every few years, Microsoft likes to bring out a new tool that works on top of SQL Server for some kind of performance dashboard-y type thing. They bring it out, and then it kind of dies on the vine because nobody actually invests in it. There was Performance Data Warehouse, I think it was called. There was something, performance dashboard kind of thing that was supposed to collect data from multiple SQL servers. There were SSRS reports built into Management Studio. Now there's this. I'd like to see them actually stick and focus on something instead of saying, look, squirrel, and then running off to something new every few years. MyTeaGotCold says, is it a best practice or a bad practice to have my server query itself and write the results to CSV? I see it a lot in SSIS. If you need the data back in a CSV output, I would always much rather have, didn't I just say never say always? I would always much rather have the app pull the results down and then convert those results into CSV. You can do that in SSIS, of course. You can pull a result set down and then dump that into CSV format. That's probably what I'd rather have people do. Marcus the German asks, hi Brent, you use SP underscore as the prefix for your stored procedures. Why? Because you need to be able to run them from any database. For example, if you're looking at SP Blitz Index, you want to run that in any user database. And the way that you do that is by having stored procedures named SP underscore, and you put them in the master database. He says, as far as I know, it's recommended not to use SP underscore for user stored procedures. That's true. I've heard people say that that's a big deal. I have never seen it be a showstopper in any environment that I've been at, but if someone feels passionately about it, good for them. However, unfortunately, if you want to run stored procedures from any database, that's what you have to do. Eugene says, what's better, a DBA specializing in one platform or multiple platforms? I want to say it was Buck Woody who had this quote. In a mature market, be a specialist. In an immature market, be a generalist. And what he means by that is that if you do something like SQL Server, you can make a whole lot of money by being very narrowly focused. Like, for example, I work just doing performance tuning just on the relational engine. I don't do SSIS. I don't write reports for you in reporting services. I don't do cubes in analysis services. I don't design reports in Power BI. I do one specific thing inside the engine. That's because SQL Server is a very mature market. If, on the other hand, you work in an immature market, for example, AI, the tools are changing every week. In an immature market, it's better off to be a generalist, not married to any one specific tool, because you're probably going to have to work with a lot of tools through the course of your day, and those tools are going to change every 3 months as they go in and out of fashion. When we talk about database administrators, if you want to earn the most money, you're probably going to be best off being a specialist. DK Kimbo says, in a general market, be a specialist in being immature. That has certainly worked out for me. Yagmer says, we would like to upgrade our Azure SQL VM from 2019 Standard to 2019 Enterprise. Is it an okay exception to do an in-place upgrade? That's not really an upgrade. It's just called a SKU upgrade. It's a special kind of upgrade that doesn't change the bits on SQL Server. It just simply changes the edition. That's totally fine. You can Google for Books Online has an explanation on how to do a SKU upgrade. Mumtaz says, can we audit transactions without configuring any audit features? And it sounds like I'm going to say no, right? It sounds like the question seems really obvious. Can we audit without auditing? You can. And in fact, it's the best way to do auditing. The way to do auditing that is like legally defensible, that you can stand in a court of law and testify about something, is to put an appliance in between SQL Server and the rest of the network. And that appliance sniffs all network traffic. It knows every command that went through the SQL Server. It knows the results that those people got back. So if you search for SQL Server auditing appliance, it's been a long time since I've looked at the market for these, but I want to say that Guardium and Imperva were the two big players, but that's exactly how you do it. Next up, I'm afraid of BI says, you know how you dogs usually look like their owners? I saw it a bit with the cute dog you picked up last time. No offense that the dog is cute. That actually was not originally my dog. That was Eve's dog. His name's Beanie, like Beanie Baby. That was Eve's dog. Eve picked, or the dog picked Eve during the pandemic. It was actually a stray dog here in Las Vegas and just came to live with Eve's family, which was kind of funny. Kyle Dev DBA says, "Hi Brent, I'm curious about the origin story of the naming of the SP Blitz scripts. Why do they start with Blitz?" Oh, sure. So as a database administrator, people would bring me SQL servers. They'd be like, "Here, check this out. This was in the accounting department. It's yours now. Here, check this out. It's from one of our competitors. We just acquired this competitor. This server is yours now." So I needed a way to quickly rush the server and figure out what's going on. There's a play in football called the Blitz, where you send all your people in for a very short period of time. You rush in, and that's exactly where the Blitz names came from. I want to rush in and do a quick assessment of one SQL server. That's what the SP Blitz stored procedures do. Hugo says, "How do you find queries that are spamming the plan cache due to different set options?" SP Blitz Cache. SP Blitz Cache has a sort order for multiple plans. Check that out. SP Blitz Cache sort order. I want to say it's called multiple plans. Next up, Henrik says, "Is there any benefit of creating an index on an index for large read-only tables?" Yes, the term that you're looking for is called an indexed view. Other database platforms call it a materialized view, but check out an indexed view. We teach you how to use those and when they're appropriate in my Mastering Index Tuning class. And then finally, Nicolaj asks, "I'm building a software as a service. I'm considering SQL Server versus Postgres. My suspicion is that it doesn't really matter, so I'll probably go for Postgres." The thing with SQL Server is it's really expensive. SQL Server, if your application grows and becomes popular, SQL Server Enterprise Edition is $7,000 US per CPU core. So my laptop sitting here next to me would cost in excess of $100,000 just for the software licensing. Now I'll tell you what, SQL Server is good. SQL Server has a lot of features in the box. High availability is easier. Disaster recovery is easier. Backups are easier. I think security and auditing are easier. But it is expensive. If you're managing the database servers yourself, what I would really go for is Aurora Postgres. Amazon Aurora Postgres is managed by Amazon. They have all kinds of really cool features built into it. Because if you're building a software as a service, really the last thing that you want to be doing is being stuck managing the database. You're going to have enough work to do as it is. But if you're building the kind of software that some of your clients will install on their servers, then talk to a few of your clients, ones that you've talked to about marketing, about building this application overall, and ask them what database server they would prefer for an app like this. What you'll often find in the enterprise market is that businesses will usually prefer SQL Server because of its integration with other tools that they have. Their backup tools, their high availability and disaster recovery tools, their single sign-on tools like they use Active Directory. But check with them. If you're running it yourself, go to Amazon Aurora. Okay, so we've been talking for a little while, about 20 minutes. We've covered all of the questions in the queue. I'm going to take a 3-minute break, and when we come back, we're going to do pull requests in the first responder kit. So I'll see you back here in 3 minutes.